The King of Winson Green. The trip to Winson Green was a quiet, sinking feeling in the pit of the stomach. The arrival, on the other hand, was a full frontal assault on every single one of the senses. The moment the main gate slammed shut behind him, the air itself changed. It stopped being regular air and became a thick, tangible thing you had to chew before you could breathe. It was a rich cocktail, heavy on the industrial bleach, with bold notes of boiled cabbage, and a lingering finish of old, damp piss. The acoustics were just as lovely. Every cough, every shout, every clanging door echoed off the Victorian tiles with the force of a bomb blast, a constant, jarring symphony shouting the same two words, "You're fucked." The processing part was a masterclass in making a human being feel like a piece of meat on a hook. He was no longer John Osbourne, he was whatever number they shouted at him. They stripped him of his worldly possessions, which amounted to some pocket fluff, the key to a door he wouldn't be seeing for months, and a few sad, bent fags. All of it went into a little plastic bag, a pathetic time capsule of his last moments as a person. But the biggest problem, the thing that drew the eyes of the bored, power-tripping guards, or screws, was his hair. In 1966, his long, flowing locks were his pride and joy, his nod to the rock stars he dreamed of becoming. Inside Winson Green, his hair was a great big, feathery bird's nest that screamed, "Damsel in distress." One of the screws, a bloke with a face like a slapped ass, swaggered over. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," he announced to the room. "And it looks like the cat stopped to shag a scarecrow on the way." Ozzy did the prison math. He quickly calculated that his magnificent Barnet was worth significantly less than his arsehole remaining a one-way street. In that moment, a new, singular mission took hold: Operation Get a Fucking Haircut. He didn't just ask, he became a relentless, yapping pest. He followed the guards around like a demented chihuahua, whining and pleading to see the prison barber, who he imagined was probably a murderer with a rusty pair of scissors. He made such a nuisance of himself that, eventually, just to shut him up, they agreed. It wasn't a haircut, it was an act of agricultural vandalism. There was no chair, no mirror, just him pushed up against a grimy wall while another inmate went at his head with a pair of shears that looked like they'd been used to castrate sheep. Great chunks of his identity fell to the floor. When it was over, he was transformed. The wannabe rock star was gone, replaced by a bug-eyed, shorn-headed creature that looked like a startled hedgehog that had lost a fight with a lawnmower. He looked ridiculous. He looked like a convict. And in the twisted world of Winson Green, it was the first, and ugliest, victory of his life. Right, so the new haircut meant he no longer looked like a stray member of the Mamas and the Papas, but that didn't change the fact that he had all the fighting prowess of a startled kitten. He knew that his plan for surviving Winson Green couldn't involve fists, because his would connect with someone's chin and likely shatter his own wrist. So, in a moment of pure, pants-shitting terror, he did what he always did when cornered: the clown inside him burst out. It wasn't a plan so much as a panicked instinct. He'd spot the biggest, meanest-looking bastard in the yard, usually a bloke with a neck like a side of beef and a face that looked like it had lost a fight with a bag of spanners, and make a beeline right for him. While everyone else was trying to be invisible, Ozzy made himself the main event. He regaled these murderers and armed robbers with the epic tale of being defeated by a television set, all the time his grand heist yielded a bag full of baby bibs. It was his own pathetic life story, repackaged as shit stand-up comedy for an audience that could kill him for clearing his throat at the wrong moment. And it bloody worked. These hard nuts were bored out of their skulls. This skinny, bug-eyed GIT, who seemed to have no survival instinct whatsoever, was better than the telly. He wasn't an inmate, he was the fucking cabaret. He became their pet lunatic, and as long as he kept the laughs coming, nobody laid a finger on him. He had stumbled, ass backwards, into the safest position in the whole prison, the untouchable idiot. But surviving the violence just meant you had to face the true enemy, the soul-destroying, mind-melting, endless expanse of bloody nothing. Boredom in prison isn't just a lack of things to do, it's a physical presence that sits on your chest and sucks the will to live right out of you. To fight it, you had to get creative. And in a place where you own nothing, your own skin becomes the last available canvas. The prison tattoo kit was a testament to human desperation. The ink was a gourmet paste made from great polish, scraped from the prison stoves and melted down into a gritty, black sludge that was probably 99% carcinogen. The needle was a sewing pin, liberated from the workshop. The process was pure medieval torture: dip, poke, bleed, repeat. 1,000 times over. He let some other con give him his first, a stick figure saint on his arm. But then he learned the craft himself. In an act of what can only be described as pure Aussie logic, he decided to tattoo a smiley face on each of his knees. In a place designed for maximum misery, surrounded by the hardest men in Birmingham, his grand project was to ensure he'd always have a couple of cheerful mates to look at while he was having a morning shite. These weren't just tattoos, they were landmarks. Each ugly, blue-black dot was a middle finger to the crushing boredom, a permanent "I was here" carved into himself with a pin and boot polish. And then, just as he was getting used to the routine, it was over. The 6 weeks in that shithole had served its purpose. It was a vaccination, a short, sharp injection of pure terror designed to make him immune to the disease of a criminal life. He had learned the lesson. He was never, ever coming back. Freedom, however, didn't arrive with a marching band. It came in the form of a bored screw sliding a plastic bag containing his wallet and keys across a counter. He was handed a coat that smelled of mothballs and despair, and a gate screeched open. He stepped out into the biting winter air. He should have been overjoyed. Instead, he just felt weird. Fellow. His body was free, but his head felt like it was still doing laps in the exercise yard. What now? Go back to trying to get a job tuning car horns? The thought was so depressing it almost made him want to turn around and ask for his cell back. It was in that grey, hollow moment that he thought of his old mate, Pat Murphy. His partner from the apple scrumping days. Ozzy had gotten the short, sharp shock and had veered off the road to ruin. Pat had stayed on it, getting into heavier and heavier shit, until one day he decided he'd rather be dead than keep driving. Ozzy pulled the stinking coat tighter. He'd survived. Pat hadn't. Tommy was still inside, facing down years for a handful of chocolate bars. This wasn't a victory lap, it was a game of Russian roulette, and he'd just been lucky that the chamber was empty when he pulled the trigger. The cage door was open. Now all this stupid bird had to do was figure out how to fly without immediately crashing into a window.